lot of the history of free speech. A lot of it, oddly enough, a lot of the litigation and law comes from a lot of schools and kids, students pushing the envelope of what they can do and what they cannot do. One of the lead cases is an armband case, I think in the late 60s. I think the last name is Tinker, where these kids were wearing armbands during the Vietnam War. Well, I think a couple of the kids may have been expelled. I'm not exactly sure on that. That's why we're not really talking about the law. I don't have a book here, but I think that's what happened. They were taken out of school, and then they filed an action, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, that black armband is a symbol of free speech. So they were allowed to do it. Now you contrast that with several years later. I'm almost thinking 2010 or something, like here recently. It's been
Tinker versus Des Moines,
yes.
landmark Supreme Court ruling on behalf of student expression.
Yeah. So there was one, and so if you look at that, and because the law is really crazy about things, and now to me, um, that almost and some of the things when you talk about today, there was a little girl that wore red lipstick in Kentucky. And there was a big fuss about that, and it made national news. Well, the principal had expelled her and told her you can't do it anymore. Some black lipstick, I think it was, some black. And it was during the goth period, all these kids were wearing a lot of dark clothing, and here, in the mountains, I'm not sure a lot of the older people, and this principal was a little older, wasn't down with that, and, had told the girl, warned her a couple times not to do it. Well, I think she was upheld, the principal was, because the little girl was being a disruption. So to me, if you look at that and you look back in the '60s, I could easily see where you could take the theory that that black armband may have been a disruption, because there's a lot of people even back then that were for the war. The black armband was a symbol of anti-Vietnam. So, but you fast forward again here, and if you look at free speech, there was a group of students that hung a banner. Now, to me, when you read these cases, they hung a banner. I believe it might have been inside or outside of school. So they hung a banner, and it said "Bong hits for Jesus." Okay, so the First Amendment not only talks about speech, but it talks about religion. So here you have the mixing of religion, because you're talking about Jesus, and got the banner, which was some kind of I can't remember what the occasion was that prompted these students to have this armband or have this banner, but they strung a big banner, "Bong hits for Jesus," and of course they were they I think were expelled. A lot of these students that do these kind of things that we think are crazy at the time were expelled. So then they filed an action, and the Supreme Court weighed in and said, no, that the government had an interest in providing for an anti-drug message. So when you go out and encourage bong hits for Jesus, then you're kind of stepping and saying that, the school as it was at a school that they cannot, and it's the government, that the government cannot condone drug use, even if it is by the
This
baby Jesus.
I'm reading an article. The Supreme Court's First Amendment decision, how its betrayal of free speech principles may have influenced a recent federal appellate decision. It was a 5-4 majority that the court held that the principal at the time, Principal Morse's actions, did not violate the First Amendment.
What by with bong hits for Jesus?
Mhm.
Right. Okay. Hmm. I thought they were. So are you telling me that they upheld the students and that it was protected?
They upheld the
The
principal.
principal, yeah, okay, that's what I said earlier. I thought you were saying something contrary. Yeah, they upheld the principal.
Mhm.
But I think in the analysis was that more or less it was an anti-drug message that the government had a vested interest in, and that's how they allowed that the principal was even though that might have not been, maybe the principal when they did what they did wasn't thinking, well, this is I'm going to do it for this reason. I think they just didn't like it because it matched the deity
I
with
think
smoking weed.
it offended their sensibilities with their
Exactly.
deity of choice. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and you look at that. So it did to me when I read that. You had a couple of things. You had some religious undertones or overtones, and then you had the drug thing along with your speech. And so, wrapped up in that was
I think
one of your 5 elements of the First Amendment, which is religion.
I think I may have found why this was such a hotly contested issue outside of what it said. The case began in January 2002 when Joseph Frederick, an 18-year-old student at Juneau Douglas High School in Alaska, unfurled a 14-foot banner with the
Yeah.
message, Bong Hits for Jesus, as the Winter Olympics torch relay passed
Okay.
by a public street
Right.
near the school.
Okay, I remember that now. So he was wanting to put obviously an advocate of marijuana, so he was wanting everybody to see it. So, which I read that I thought it was funny. But if you're in the principal and you're in depending on what area you're in, that's now today. Certain segments of California, there ain't nobody blinking an eye on that one. Probably still make, and who knows, the court will look at these things. And like I said, the banner to me is a freedom of expression, just like the armband was. The issues are decidedly different. That's absolutely true. But to me, the message is the same. It's speech. So how does the court go about upholding one and not the other? And they got ways of doing that, and they'll look at facts. And like I said, I think the analysis here was to pull out the drug that the government, the school, the government had a vested interest in making sure that they had an anti-drug messing.
Right.
They don't want kids doing drugs.
Turn me around, help me to the door. I'll never make it on my own.